So I started with Republic just after they were acquired by private equity. So I was hired as somebody to come in and help them manage whatever was coming. And my job description was very vague in the beginning, and I knew I'd be helping, but I wasn't sure what. So it was kind of interesting to step into that. We knew that the old CEO who'd been there, president CEO, who'd been in place for 20 years. He was the third family member to run the business over 115 years. So the cultural shock of a non-family member taking over in Todd and Mark leaving and private equity owning was what I walked into. That's where we were before we hired Bill. And I've had, I don't want to say bad luck, but I've never felt like the investments of coaches in my, as far as business overall coaches, personal coaches, I've had better luck with, but business coaches, I've never had terribly good luck with. I find that as a rule, they overpromise, underdeliver, and you end up doing all the heavy lifting yourself. So I was surprised when Todd made the decision to bring Bill in and decided to have an open mind about it and go forward. But I was pretty confident we could navigate what we were doing on our own. Well, in my previous role, I had brought in traction and the model in traction and had very good luck implementing it myself. So I felt pretty comfortable I could do that again with Republic. But I wasn't sure what role Todd really wanted me to play, and I don't think he knew at the time. I think we were both kind of struggling to figure out how we leverage both our skills most effectively, and that of the leadership team, which was in flux at the time. There were several questions, so I kind of felt like we could do it on our own. I'd had good luck doing it on my own, so I didn't think a coach was really necessary. And Todd talked to one of our contractors who'd been working with Bill and felt like then talked to Bill and felt like Bill was a great addition to what we were trying to accomplish. And so I was just having not had a great experience with implementers in the past. I didn't feel the need for it, and I was just uncertain whether it would be something that added value for us. I think Todd knew, based on having been at Republic for a long time, that the previous leader was managing a business to keep cash flow coming in. So it was a cash cow and it was producing well. And I don't think they'd spent a whole lot of time really looking at serious growth. And I know Todd knew that PE would be demanding growth. And I think he understood better than most of us that that shift from cash to growth was going to be a very painful thing to do. And he knew we needed better business structure to do that. So I think more than anything, he was looking for an operating system. He knew traction was a good tool. He didn't know about system and soul at the time, but he knew that our contractor had worked with System and Soul and wanted to know more about it. So he went to him and talked, and that introduced the concept of Bill. So it really was a warm lead pushing us to Bill. And that conversation after Bill and Todd talked, I think really kind of led to the we need help doing this. We're not going to do it alone. I also think that in the process of figuring out how Todd and I would best work together, that kind of put me into the implementer role, into the leading the leadership team role. And I don't know that Todd was sure how to do that before talking to Bill and understanding where our skill sets really fit and the experience I'd had running bigger teams before and kind of managing culture and building that through. So I think kind of it was one of those situations where three or four different things came together at once that seemed to fit us and work well. So for me, it was kind of a bit of a letting go process. I had been in leadership roles where I had to carry so much of the load that it was very nice to in our first meeting, because really my first introduction to Bill was maybe an email with, "Hey, do this prep work," because he's notorious for giving us homework before meetings. I don't know how you can do that. Homework is supposed to be after. You always give some type of assignment and reading. And knowing what he sent to us, some of it I'd seen before, so I wasn't surprised by it. And I thought it fit well with what we're doing. I think he did a Simon Sinek video, which I'm always a big fan of. So he got some points for that. So I came in with an open mind and I was excited to have somebody lead and drive and just to see where it went. Normally in those situations by 10 o'clock at a 9 to 4 meeting, I've already discounted the value of the instructor or the speaker or the guy leading the meeting. And this guy doesn't know what he's doing. I could do this much better. But I liked where Bill took things. I liked that he was very interactive and very willing to shift gears based on our needs. So often it's a set agenda, and it goes down the path of the skills of that leader as opposed to the needs of the audience. And that's been very frequent with my experiences of coaches in this format. So I've done this before. I know better than you do. Well, yeah, you do, but this business is different because they're all different. So, and Bill respected that and came in with an open mind and a willingness to help us figure out how to get everybody in the right seats. And that was such an important step for us. And we failed miserably. I think half of the team has changed since then, in either shifted roles or is taking on different things. And I think that's not unusual for a business like this, but I think we had to go through that and we had to make those decisions and fall on our face and learn from it. And Bill knew that. He knew we would, and he told us we would, but we were arrogant and proud, and that is part of it too. You have to fall down a couple of times and stub your toe and say, okay, I'll figure this out. But by the end of that meeting, I was confident that Bill and I would have a good working relationship. But there was no doubt in my mind that he was a good fit for us. I knew that structure would help us dramatically because we needed meeting structure. We needed uh, roles assigned. We needed people understanding what they're supposed to do. So getting to clarity, autonomy, results, getting to quarterly objectives and healthy fit reviews. I mean, those things all fit. They're just basic blocking and tackling of running a good business. But what, 70% of businesses don't do them. So, we needed that. And I needed the backbone of System and Soul to make it seem legit, right? I could point to the tool. Well, it says here you have to do it. So I guess you have to do it, which is a cop out, but it's an easier way than, winning their hearts and minds. It's saying, it's in the system. You have to do it. And people bought into it and did a pretty good job with it. I would say if I pointed to one thing that we have done and was dependent upon our participation in System and Soul and working with Bill, it's the ability to have a relatively pain-free merger. So we took on a company in February that was uh, 40 million compared to our 70 million. So a significant increase in volume. And our team down through the mid-level supervisors has all stepped up and found a way to manage day in and day out activity using the structure of System and Soul while taking on the responsibility of merging these two companies and done so very well. And I think the discipline of running meetings, assigning tasks, actions, keep in the proper vernacular, to talk through opportunities, to set objectives, and to have a more disciplined approach. And bringing a new team in and expecting them to act in that same format has changed the way that we've been able to merge that company in. So to me, that's the biggest thing. As I compare System and Soul to Traction, I didn't use any type of software. So we did things very well at the leadership team level. In fact, in some ways better, I think, in terms of getting the one page or the two-page business plan and talking through that and working through it consistently. And that we embraced well. What I didn't do a good job of getting it down through the organization. I didn't have the structure to get my mid-level managers thinking in terms of sync meetings. I didn't have the discipline to get them to put in job descriptions and car and all the pieces that needed to be there. So I think System and Soul, the pieces are so similar to what Traction is, but the software is just so effective at helping you fill in the blanks. It's, to oversimplify it, it's the difference between starting with a blank sheet of paper and a paint by number, right? Your picture, if you're not an artist, the picture turns out much better when you have the paint by number. And this definitely helped us do that, and our mid-level managers even more, because I think I could have created something pretty good at the leadership level and we would have been fine, but it never would have carried down to the other levels of the organization. There's just too much there and too many people who have to buy in. And when you give them a tool that kind of gives them guide rails, it protects them quite a bit from getting too far off course. And they tend to ask much better questions because System and Soul is there, right? What do I do with this? Why did you say that, we need to have these actions covered in 7 days? Well, because we have objectives that are a longer period. And what does that mean? And when do you go between the two? And how do you use opportunities to vet things out and determine what should go where? Those are all very helpful tools to start. And as you know, part of it's just having a vernacular that y'all are saying the same thing at the same time. And system as a whole helps with that too, because you say sync meeting now and people have a very different expectation than if you just said a weekly team meeting, right? Sync means different things. It means I'm going to have to come in and tell people how I'm doing. I'm going to have a shout out. I'm going to have to think about, who's doing well in my organization. I'm going to have to think about, what new opportunities are coming, and the team's going to challenge me to think ahead and be productive. And team meeting doesn't say that. It just says I have to come and listen to the boss talk for an hour. I don't want to do that. So that's helped a lot too. My title is Senior VP of Business Development, but I also lead the leadership team. And right now I'm also the VP of HR. So go figure. I've been the VP of marketing. I've been the VP of operations. So it's just whatever needs to get done, and that's the blessing that Todd and I have, is we can kind of step in and take things on and whatever needs to be done. But yeah, in all reality, I'm kind of the chief operating officer as far as the leadership team goes. A couple things. I'm surprised where System and Soul has flourished and where it hasn't, and I'm curious as to how to make it more effective in the areas it has not. We've had a weakness at sales leadership levels. Our sales leader of the overall organization is stepping up and coming into his own as he's replaced some regional sales leaders, but the regional sales leaders are not using System and Soul anywhere near to the level that I think they should. So if I would give our operations team a minus or a B plus on their System and Soul usage and how effective they are with it, I would give our sales team a C or C minus. And I think that's a huge miss. And I think part of it is legacy problems. I think part of it is leadership talent problems. I think part of it is an uncertainty of how to drive change within that organization. You have free thinkers, you have, operations people. You give them a box with places to check, and they're going to be, God bless you, I want to do this stuff. It's easy. So System and Soul fits with the way operations people think. Salespeople, well, we do it slightly differently, so we can never use this model. Okay, stop. Let's move back and let's rethink this, because there's too many good things in here. And we were without a CRM, so it was tempting to try to drive CRM activities into System and Soul. I probably would have if I had been leading the sales team, but we have been debating about a CRM, and we finally put one in place. So I think the CRM coupled with System and Soul will probably be the nice merger, and we need to work on that. So that's where I see us in our organization. We have to get better. We're getting more discipline around everybody in the organization having a objective for the quarter. We're getting everybody in the organization a healthy fit review, and we're tracking that, training our supervisors to improve their skills in those interactions. So I'm feeling very good about all of that. Now we have 60 people coming in the organization, plus adding new locations about every 3 to 6 months. So it's a lot of new bodies to come in and get incorporated. I'm trying to get that driven through an LMS format. So CAR becomes something you can drive through an LMS. So you can have people learning through video, screen capture activity, how to become good at using System and Soul, along with several other tools. And then tracking that onboarding and System and Soul usage through their first through LMS, and then follow it up through tracking them inside of System and Soul. And they should complement each other nicely on that front. So diving into these culture meetings, culture town halls, one of my goals is get them to understand the need for structure in their business, that's part of a culture, is having structure, and System and Soul can help them use the tool to help them define their culture and keep the legacy things that are important there, but have some structure to keep them moving forward to be more in line with how we do things. And it will be, most of them are asking for it, so I don't think it's going to be that hard, but that it's a new experience for me, merging two organizations together to come out with one culture and one operating system that's functional. That's not an easy lift, and I don't want to suggest to people that it is, but it's important if we're going to be successful long term, and hand this off to some other owner down the road who can make everything still work. I would tell them to honestly look at who they want to be 2 years from now, and be honest with yourself. If you want to be the same organization and be slightly bigger, don't bother. If you want to make dramatic change in your organization to improve how you do things and grow and be disciplined about that growth in a way that can be good for most of your employees, then System and Soul can help you do that. But if you're really just looking to Keep track of your to-dos and don't bother because you're not really looking to make dramatic change. You're not trying to be an entrepreneur. You're not trying to build something new. And System and Soul is a tool that helps you build something new and change who you are. So be honest with yourself. What do you really want from this? You just want a little extra money and feel really good about what you're doing for your team and where they're going and have them understand. Then System and Soul can do that. So I think it's about where you want to go, not who you are today. It's the truth. And so many people, I think it's very easy to sit where we were 2 years ago and say, well, we want to grow because that's what our PE overlords want. And that's all great. But think about what you really mean by that. Do you really want to be a $150 million company using the existing structure you have today? Because you're going to be freaking miserable. And people don't think in terms of that. They don't think in terms of we really need a structure. We need everybody in the organization to understand what they do. We need it to be scalable so we can have a whole new location and have it up and running in X amount of time. If you give that some thoughts, you realize very quickly that a structure like System and Soul is going to be invaluable. And I would ask, I used the phrase before, but most things I've done in business, the mistakes I've made and the successes I've had have all been based around asking better questions. If I had asked better questions, I would have made a lot fewer mistakes. And when I did ask great questions, very good things happen. And System and Soul, as I said before, helps you ask much better questions because you're thinking at a different level.